Am I the asshole for making my wife pay for something she gave away? My wife has a bad habit of giving away or lending out things that don't belong to her. I've lost count of how many times I go to look for something of mine only for her to say she lent it to someone. She also takes forever to get that item back. She once lent my stuff to a coworker and refused to ask for it back for a month. And I'll never forget the day my usually quiet, reserved son snapped at her for trying to give away his Nintendo Switch. If I wasn't also fed up with her behavior, I would have washed his mouth out with soap. I've had countless talks with her, but she continues to do this. My son and I have resorted to locking up anything we don't want touched, which is something we shouldn't have to do in our own home. Last week, I won a $300 tent in a raffle. I had no plans on using it, so I was selling it. When I found a buyer, I went to look for it, and I couldn't find it. When I asked my wife, she said she gave it to a friend of ours. I got mad at her and said she had no right to give it away. Her defense was, since I didn't spend money on it and I wasn't planning on using it, it made sense to give it away for free. I told her that wasn't her decision to make, but she kept on repeating herself. I've had enough of this and said she's either going to pay me herself or get the money from who she gave it to. And if she didn't, I'd get law enforcement involved. Since she would rather die than ask a friend for money, she paid me out of her own pocket. The issue eventually got around to her family. While they did say she should have talked to me first, they also reprimanded me for asking for payment. They reasoned that since I didn't actually buy the tent, I didn't lose any money, and it went to a friend who could actually put it to good use. I got several texts saying I should be ashamed for extorting my wife for money. I think I have every right to want to be paid for something of mine that was taken. But everyone keeps emphasizing the fact that I didn't technically buy the tent, and I didn't want it, so I have nothing to be upset about. Am I the asshole?
A bride is going viral on the internet because her maid of honor booked her wedding on the same weekend as hers. Not only was it the same weekend, but it was the day after the bride's wedding. For context, this bride had her wedding planned for 2 years. So you can imagine her surprise when her friend texts in the group chat that she booked her wedding venue, and it happened to be the Saturday after this bride's Friday wedding. So immediately, some drama breaks out. The bride's first course of action is to ask her maid of honor to step down as maid of honor, as she doesn't think she'll have the ability to plan her own wedding and be, a good maid of honor. After all, a ton of planning goes into being a maid of honor and organizing. Bride and maid of honor were very close, and they shared the same friend group. A lot of the bridesmaids and groomsmen in the first wedding, the original wedding, were asked to come be bridesmaids and groomsmen in the second wedding the day after. All of them immediately started expressing some concern about being able to afford to be in 2 bridal parties. Not to mention the time commitment of being in 2 bridal parties on the same weekend. To really top matters off, the friend/maid of honor ended up using some of the same vendors as the bride, specifically the florist and the photographer. After all, why do research when someone else did it for you? So what are your guys' thoughts on this? How would you react in this situation? And also, it begs the question, if 2 friends want to have a wedding very close together, what is too close? Is having it in the same month too close together? In the same week? What defines that?
I used to be best friends with this really skinny girl who had an amazing body, still does, she still has an amazing body, and she used to say the most fucked up, out-of-pocket shit about my weight and my body to me that I've ever heard in my life. Also, I just want to preface this by saying that, my body is like a jack-in-the-box. I have been really heavy, and I have been really thin, and everywhere in between. Skinny privilege is real, y'all. But anyways, something that she used to like to do a lot is she would find pictures of really fat women on the internet, and then she would text them to me and be like, oh my god, you and this girl have the exact same body, the exact same. And obviously there's nothing wrong with being fat, and we should never be placing value judgments on weight, but I was in my early 20s and I had to discover the body positivity movement, so that shit wrecked me. At one point, she had this huge crush on a guy that she went to school with, and she found out that he had a girlfriend, and so she looked the girlfriend up on Instagram, sent me a screenshot of the girlfriend, and then called me, and I swear to God, she said to me, how could any guy in his right mind be more attracted to a short, pale brunette over a tall, blonde, skinny queen? This one time we were at her house getting ready to go to the pool, and we were in bathing suits looking in the mirror, and I have pretty big boobs and she doesn't, and she dead ass looked at me and she said, I am so glad that I don't have big boobs. In my opinion, they look sloppy and gross. And then at one point, she had made friends with this new group of girls at school, and they were all going out somewhere on a Saturday night, and I was actually going to the same place with a group of people as well, so I suggested that we all meet up, and she deadass told me that she would be more comfortable introducing me to them if I lost weight first. Like, it's not funny. Like, it's not funny, but, like, I don't know. There's something there. You know what I mean? Like, there's something funny about it. And I never said anything to her. I never said anything. And it was genuinely because I was like, any girl that would say things like this must be hurting more inside than I ever will. Like, I genuinely thought, like, this girl must hate herself. And I guess I didn't want to, like, add to that. Plus, like, we had been friends for a long time, and there was, like, other stuff I liked about her. So even though it wrecked my self-esteem and it made me feel like shit about myself, I never said anything until this one time me and her were getting ready to go out in my place. And for once, I actually liked the way that I looked. Like, I was happy with my body. I liked the way that I looked in my clothes, and I hadn't been feeling like that for a long time. And so I told her, I was like, oh my God, I look so hot tonight. I even gave myself a little twirl. Y'all, like, she dead ass looked me right in my fucking face, and she said these words. She said, I'm so glad that you like the way that you look, because if it were me, I would rather fucking die. And I just looked at her and I was like, what the fuck is your problem? Like, that was an insanely mean thing to say. And then, boom, huge explosion. Like, I had it out with her. And she cried and apologized and begged for us to still be friends. But I was just like, nah, like, we're done.
I got accused of being on drugs when I was in nursing school. When I was in my second year of my nursing degree, I had my first ever hospital placement and I went to the transplant ward. So my placement went for 4 weeks and I was so nervous already because I'd never been a student in a hospital. All of our previous placements were at aged care facilities or community facilities for our mental health placement. The other students that I was there on placement with, I wasn't really friends with them and I didn't know anyone too well. So I was so nervous, and it was our first day, and that particular ward in transplant did handover with the nurses as a full team. So everyone on shift that day would go around to each patient's bedside and there would be a handover given. So we're about halfway through handover and the nurse unit manager decides that he was going to come and join us. And he comes and stands right next to me and started talking to me, and everyone else was listening. And he proceeded to say to me, your pupils are really big. Did you have a big night last night? Or did you take something this morning that you shouldn't have? All the other nurses and even the patients just burst out laughing. And I remember just honestly feeling like the walls were closing in on me. I was so embarrassed. And then he just looked me up and down and walked away before I even had a chance to say anything. One of the girls that was the other student I was on placement with came up to me and asked me if I was okay, and she just told me to ignore him. And I literally just felt this rage come over me, and I thought, no way, like, it is my first day here, I've got to spend the next 4 weeks here, I'm not going to let someone talk to me like that, I don't care if he's the manager, I just really didn't give a crap, so I decided to follow him to his office. When I got to his office, I honestly just lost it, and I just said to him, don't you dare ever speak to me like that. I said, you are so disrespectful and rude. I said, the fact that you did that in front of the entire nursing staff, my fellow students, patients, I said, that is so unprofessional. I said, if you ever speak to me like that again, I will be reporting you and I will be taking it further. I said, you owe me an apology. After I was finished rambling and yelling at him, I just stormed out of his office. But I honestly hate in nursing how there's this culture that you can speak to your students like crap and get away with it, or act like they're the shit kickers and aren't there to learn anything. I had had so many experiences in my uni days going to placements with horrible nurses and horrible people above me just being so rude. It's honestly so discouraging as a student, and I know so many people that actually dropped out of their degrees because they were just so over it and they couldn't deal with it anymore. I think that's why throughout my career, both in the hospitals and in injecting, I do always take on the facilitating roles and managing and looking after the students. Because when I was a student, I promised myself and I swore that I would never, ever, ever be condescending or mean to a student. I always made sure that I was helpful and that they felt safe with me and that they could talk to me about things and come to me for anything. So that was my biggest goal, and I always decided if I ever turn into a person who does become like that, then I'd be leaving this career. I never wanted to become a bitter, old, sour nurse who's just nasty and hates her job. And it was always said in uni that it was character building, or it was just part of the process, or you'll laugh about it one day, which, yeah, that's so fine to say, and I do laugh about it now when I look back on it, but it should not be like that. It shouldn't be a rite of passage to be treated like dirt or treated like someone's slave for your entire 3-year degree. Some of your placements, you're there for 8 weeks. I remember some placements dreading every single day of it. It's so exhausting. It's so draining. You're being tested and quizzed about your knowledge all day, every day. And then to have people on top of that treating you poorly is just so overwhelming. So back to the story, once I came back to the ward, I started just resuming my normal day. I was taking patient vitals, doing meds, everything like that with my buddy nurse. And then I saw the manager walk over to me and I thought, oh God, here we go. I'm going to be asked to leave, or he's just going to scream at me in front of everyone. And to my surprise, he asked me to come to his office so he could have a chat with me. And when I got in his office, he was just so apologetic. He was like, I'm so sorry. You know, I wasn't thinking before I spoke. I feel really bad. I didn't mean to do that. And I promise I won't do it again. Tried to essentially talk his way out of it. Essentially, we just ended on fine terms. I said, you know, thanks for the apology. You know, I really appreciate it. But as I said, if you want to talk to me in future, you can request a one-on-one through my facilitator or come and speak to me and we can talk in your office. He said he thought it was just something funny to say, and he just really did notice how big my pupils were, which I've had this comment my entire life. I've always had really big pupils. I remember when I first turned 18 and me and my friends would go out to bars or clubs, I'd say about 60% of the time, even if it was early, I would never get let in because I would always have really big pupils. Even if we were going out for like a Sunday sesh during the day or anything, people and bouncers would always comment on my pupils, or even when I would get in somewhere, people would always ask me if I had any drugs, or they'd ask me what I was on, which, you know, fair enough. I didn't really care if it was in a social situation, but being in a professional environment and a place where I was at work and I was a student was just too far. But the industry needs to change, and that should not be accepted, and it should not be a normal thing that everyone should experience, because I don't think I've ever met a nurse who doesn't have a story like that, which is so sad. I know a lot of nurses can think that students are a pest, or that, you know, things take way longer with them. Look at it in a way where they're helpful. They're helping you, and they're going to be helping you in the future as well. So utilize them, and utilize them for their strengths.
I just rejected a guy in Kroger, and the security guard had to escort me outside for safety to my car. Story time. Real story. That just happened just now. I'm literally shaking. So if my word is mumbling, that's because I'm still trying to process what just happened to me. So I simply went to Kroger, minding my business, to go get some fruits and some veggies to prep my meal for me and my kids. And I noticed that there were 2 guys around just lurking. They really wasn't doing anything, but because I have my baby, my focus immediately start paying attention to their asses, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to be judging people. They might just be doing their own thing, but I'm still gonna keep an eye. It is sad that we have to do this as women, but again, your intuition is never wrong, so don't ignore it when you feel like something is up. So while I was minding my business, picking up my fruits and stuff with my baby in the cart, one of the guys just kept passing my cart, and I was like, okay, this is weird, but he was picking up some bananas. So I'm like, okay, maybe they're fucking shopping. That's what I'm thinking. So as I left the fruit aisle to go pick up some yogurt, one of the guy pat me on my shoulder, and I turned around, and well, I didn't know it was one of them, but when they pat me on my shoulder, I turned around and I noticed it was him. And I said, hi. And he said, hi. And he proceeded to ask me, where is the cocoa in the store? And I said, I don't know. Where is the cocoa? I don't know. And I was like, maybe you can ask somebody in the front. And he was like, so can I have your number? And I said, no, I'm sorry. You cannot have my number. And I started pushing my cart. And you know, when somebody pulled your shoulder, like, okay, you need to come back. I'm not done talking to you. That's exactly what he did. So I said, excuse me, you don't touch me like that. You don't do that shit. Like, that is very disrespectful. Don't touch me. So I immediately just forget about the yogurt and everything. And I start pushing the cart towards the register. He proceeded to follow me to the register, like close to the register. And I was like, dude, what do you want? And he was like, I'm just asking you for your number. So the other guy I saw coming towards us. And I was like, okay, this is not looking good. Let me just leave this shit inside of the grocery store and head to where the security guard is. So I told the security guard what was going on. And he was like, okay, I will escort you out in a minute. Just stay right here. So he walked up to the guys and he was like, I don't know what he asked them, but they started laughing. And it was like, look at this mother effing clown trying to question me. That's exactly what they said to the guy, the security. So the security was like, okay, let me escort you out. And he was like, do you want any grocery? I said, no, I don't want any grocery because I just want to go home with my kid because I have my baby. So while he was taking me to my car, the guys, they walked out the store as well, and they started yelling at the security guard. They started calling out his name, and he was like, don't pay attention to them because if they come at me, I will be able to protect you and your kid. And I'm so grateful for that security because he didn't have to, but he did. I ended up being in the car safely, and I pulled off and I drove around a little bit before I had come straight home because I didn't want nobody to be following me because I don't know if they was following me or not. But my thing is, why is it so hard for men to take rejection? When a woman says no, why is it so hard for you to respect that shit? Respect when a woman tell you no. It's a reason why she said no. She's just not interested. And for her to feel unsafe because she said no, it's crazy. Like, what happened to respecting people's boundaries? What happened to respecting people, period? Why do I have to think about you taking my life because I said no?
My stepsister is telling everybody that my boyfriend got her pregnant. Story time. So I met my boyfriend Steve 3.5 years ago and we hit it off straight away. Everything was going really, really well until I introduced him to my family. In my family, there is my mum, my stepdad, and my stepsister, who we'll call Amy. Me and Amy get on well, we're just not best friends. She's kind of like an intense party girl situation. So when I introduced him to the family, we actually learned that Amy and Steve used to date. Isn't that just so fun? The relationship only lasted a few months, and Steve said that they broke up because she cheated on him. She got her with another guy on a night out. So whilst we're at this family event, Amy gets really, really wound up and is telling me that I need to break up with Steve because it's weird. She called Steve her sloppy seconds. She also tried to get our parents to force us to break up as well. At this point, it had been about 4 or 5 years since they dated, so it really wasn't that deep. And I didn't even know Amy when she was dating Steve. But I ended up getting pretty upset because my family jumped on the bandwagon and started telling us that we actually should break up. So a few years have gone by and every single family event now, me and Steve end up having to leave because Amy makes it weird. She'd say how I stole her boyfriend and she would sell that narrative to literally anyone new that came into the family. It was very, very obvious that she was just jealous. But I really, really like Steve, so we ignored it. So I recently had a conversation with my mum about how I was thinking that Steve was going to propose. Because I'm not going to lie, he's not being exactly subtle with it. And at this point, Amy walks into the room because she just recently moved back in with my parents. She starts asking a bunch of really intrusive questions about our relationship. Amy is now 4 months pregnant. She had said that the father was some deadbeat guy who she'd got with on a one-night stand. And he now wants nothing to do with her. So until a week ago, I'd actually been really, really excited for Amy. I'd been taking her to her appointments, helping out what she needed. My stepdad sent me this long ass text about how I can't marry Steve because he is the real father of Amy's child. I was absolutely heartbroken at this point, so I spoke to Steve and he was like, this bitch is lying. He said there is absolutely no way that is possible. Steve even said he'd prove it with a paternity test. I messaged Amy and I was asking for more details about when they had slept together, and she was like, it's happened a few times now, you know, just here and there. She was giving me dates and times, but they always seem to change. She'd also told the doctor completely different information. Remember, I had been at her doctor's appointments. She also said one of the times that they'd been together was when we were on holiday in New York. So now I'm getting my family saying that I need to break up with Steve because I can't be with the child's dad. And it wouldn't be right for me to be with the child's dad when the mother is single. So Steve and Amy should get back together so they can parent the child. Like, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Yeah. So what do you think? Should I break up with Steve so that they can be together?
Things I will never, ever, ever, ever understand about the internet. The way people will come up with phrases like pick me girl or bop or shit like that and just run with it. Like, take the initial meaning and completely disregard that and just run with it. I've talked about this almost 3 billion times. The way people will build people up, give them a platform, make them rich and famous and amazing, and like put them on a pedestal and be on their hands and knees praising them. And then once they get opportunities, no, you take that away. You don't like them anymore. People who dedicate their whole life, like, they are fully obsessed in a creepy way with high school relationship couples. And then they're like, oh, I don't believe in love anymore. Like, I can't believe y'all broke up. It's a high school relationship. I personally have only experienced a couple people like this, but I know there's hella people that just completely disregard the fact that just because people have social media followers doesn't mean they have, like, a normal human being life. I posted a video about my family business, and I didn't want to post it because I knew shit like this would happen. But people started spam calling our business line and being borderline disrespectful to my aunt, who was answering the phone. It's just like, do y'all not understand that it's a business line? You can't call just to say hi to someone, and I appreciate the fact that you do want to talk to me and you do have respect for me, but you still have to have respect for my family and the business that we have been growing for like well over 3 years. This, like, just fully, my brain doesn't compute it. These dumb ass makeup trends. Strawberry makeup. Okay, so blush, latte makeup, bronzer and brown eyeshadow, mob wife makeup, a smoky eye, and a full face. The way people will take the time out of their day to comment, but not take their time out of their day to research anything. I could make a whole dedicated video to this She Glam powder. Oh my god, I love this She Glam powder. And someone would be like, where's it from? It's from She Glam. I've seen people do like perfume reviews and they're like, this is the best vanilla perfume. Like, it smells like vanilla. It's so good. If you love vanilla, get this vanilla perfume. And people will be like, but does it smell like vanilla? No, it smells like fucking cardboard. That's what it smells like. People will see a product that is obviously not made for them and then completely bash the product because it didn't work for them. Someone could make a video about maternity clothes and maternity leggings and stuff like that, and someone will be like, I'm not pregnant, but these leggings don't fit me at all. Like, they're so baggy on the stomach.
Am I the astronaut for banning mom from my wedding? My parents got divorced when I was 16. Dad cheated with mom's sister. After the divorce, Dad married my aunt. 2 years later, he realized his mistake and divorced. He then tried to get back with Mom, but she was having none of it. When she discovered the affair, Mom stopped talking to a lot of people, Dad included, because a lot of them knew about the affair and covered for them. Family, friends, if they knew before she did, she cut them out. She would only communicate with Dad through lawyers, my brothers, and me. My mom remarried 5 years ago. My dad is still heartbroken. 3 months ago was my engagement party. It was the first time in years Mom has been in the same room as a lot of the invited guests. I asked while planning the party if this would be a problem for her. She said it would be fine. I thought that meant she was ready to forgive and move on. Oh no. She was friendly with some, got on well with my future in-laws, but gave a frostbitten cold shoulder to most. Aunts, uncles from both sides of my family, my grandma, friends her and Dad used to be close with, Dad, all tried talking to her. She acted as if they weren't there, that they didn't exist. I was mortified and angry. It's been years. She couldn't make an effort. The next day I went to see her. We argued. I accused her of breaking her promise to me. She asked what promise. I reminded her that I asked if we would have a problem with the guests. She said no, that it would be fine. She then said that she told me no lie. She was fine with the guest list. It was my party, but she made no promises to interact with those guests. I called her childish, resentful, vindictive, that those personality traits are probably what drove Dad into another's bed. She made me and Dad look like fools in front of everyone, and if she wasn't going to forgive, if she wasn't interested in repairing our family, then she was uninvited from the wedding. That was 3 months ago. She hasn't reached out, apologized, or anything. Can't imagine why. I sent a message inviting her dress shopping. She didn't reply, and she was a no-show on the day. I sent pics of the dresses I liked, asking what she thought. No reply. I sent another message asking if she'd join the next shopping outing. Perhaps we could find her a mother of the bride dress. Again, no reply. I went to Dad upset. He tried calling Mom, but as usual, his call went to voicemail. I feel hurt by all this. Yes, I said things that hurt her too, but she is being so stubborn. I'm her child. She should put some work in to mend what broke. My brothers have told me they disagree. They say I'm selfish and self-centered as Dad. If Mom never speaks to me again, it will be my own fault. The thing is, Mom never gave Dad a chance to make up for what he did. He's still sorry about all that happened. I'm afraid she'll be as stubborn and bitter about our fight as she was about Dad's affair. We all make mistakes. So am I the astronaut? I think possibly a small TA, but she is too.
Would I be the asshole for not inviting my sister-in-law to my baby shower after she announced her pregnancy at my daughter's funeral?
Oh.
In 2020, I, female 28, gave birth to my daughter. In 2022, she passed away after a fight with childhood cancer. It was the hardest time of both mine and my husband's entire life. Since then, it's been a struggle every day, and I miss her more than I ever thought I could miss someone. It's like a part of me was lost with her. Shortly after she passed away, we had a memorial service for her. That is where my sister-in-law decided to tell people that she was expecting. She didn't make any big announcements or anything, but more than 10 people at the service heard, and it's what everyone was talking about. To understate it, I was livid. A few months ago, I found out I'm pregnant again. My own sister really wanted to plan me a baby shower. I said okay, and I've been working on who I want to invite. I really don't want sister-in-law there. Besides what she did, she's a vindictive and mean person, and I cannot stand her. I don't want her there. I mentioned it to my husband, and he says he could care less whether she's there or not. But for the sake of saving face, I want opinions before I do this. Would I be the asshole for not inviting her? Also, for context, I would still be inviting my other two sister-in-laws, husband's other sis, and husband's brother's wife. She'd be the only one not invited.
Am I the arsehole for divorcing my husband over being a stay-at-home dad? Story time. So I married my husband Steve around 5 years ago. We've been dating since high school and we were the definition of like high school sweethearts. One of the things that most attracted me to him was how ambitious and driven he was, and his work ethic was just 10 out of 10. 3 years into our marriage, we had our first baby. We had decided that we would send our baby to daycare after 6 months. But when those 6 months were up, Steve just refused to go back to work. His argument was that if I picked up more shifts, we'd be able to afford a single income household. And that if he stayed home and looked after the baby, he'd be saving us money anyway because we wouldn't have to pay for daycare. And he said it would be better for the child as well because he'd have a parent at home with him all the time. I was not up for this at all. I really wanted to send our little one to daycare for so many reasons. It's good for their social skills, they learn a lot. Not gonna lie, if it was just me working, that would include me picking up a load more shifts. And in turn, I wouldn't get to spend as much time with the baby. Came to the idea that if he was scared of daycare, we could work in different shifts and tag team who was going to stay at home with the baby. He just outright refused that. I was like, that doesn't really work for me. His argument was that he doesn't want to be like the normal dad and he doesn't want to be the one to go to work. He wants to be the primary caregiver and stay at home all the time. One day, I come home from work and Steve was supposed to be at work late that night. I come home and I find him sitting on the sofa with the baby. And I was like, oh, did you get let off work early today? Or he'd quit his job without telling me, and then had the audacity to sit me down in front of a chart. The chart depicted how he wanted me to take care of cooking and cleaning on the weekdays whilst he took care of the baby, and then on the weekends I would take care of the baby because stay-at-home dads deserve to have time off as well. We did this for a few months, right? And the whole dynamic was so deeply upsetting to me. I was absolutely exhausted all the time from working these extra hours, and this meant that I wasn't having the quality time that I really wanted with the baby. When I was 100% sure that he wasn't going to make any different compromise, I just straight up filed for divorce. So they gave us 50-50 custody and I moved straight back in with my parents. My parents are absolutely amazing. They help watch the kids so I can work. My husband is now living paycheck to paycheck. He's really struggling. So we offered to let my mum hold the baby whilst he was at work, but because of how fuming he was, he he refused that and has enrolled the child in daycare anyway, which is now costing him even more money. He then asked me to pay for the daycare, and I was like, no, because you can just happily leave the baby with my parents. So of course, now my ex and his friends are calling me the arsehole here for divorcing him over such a small issue. Now that I'm not providing any support to him, they're even more mad. So what do you think? Am I the arsehole here?